Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. As you know, I'm fond of quoting Carl Sagan. That said, the evidence for what is now known as the endosymbiotic theory or the endosymbiont theory, it's quite compelling. So, to aid students in remembering all of this evidence, I encourage them to remember the acronym, the MAD Doctor. The evidence is definitely going to show up on your assessment. In this acronym, the M stands for membranes. So, both the mitochondria and chloroplasts have double membranes. An outer membrane, which is structurally similar to that larger eukaryotic cell's membrane, suggesting as if they had passed through this membrane long ago and took on that outer membrane. They also have a second membrane that is structurally the same as free-living prokaryotes. Second line of evidence, A, for antibiotics. So if you treat eukaryotic cells, like say algal cells, with certain antibiotics, like chloramphenicol, which works by inhibiting bacterial protein synthesis. It targets the bacteria's 70S ribosomes. That's how it works on bacteria, but if you hit eukaryotic cells with this antibiotic, it targets the ribosomes of the mitochondria and the chloroplasts of that algal cell, which, as you'll see down below, also possess 70S ribosomes. The first D stands for division. Both mitochondria as well as chloroplasts have their own internal cell cycle. They're dividing via binary fission on their own timetable, independent of the larger eukaryotic host cell. The second D stands for DNA. Both mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own DNA. And the DNA found within the mitochondria and chloroplasts, it's circular, just like the DNA of free-living microbes. Interesting side note. So you inherited your mitochondrial DNA from your mother. It's exactly the same. Here's what's cool though. If you're a female, your mitochondrial DNA is exactly the same as your mother's, your grandmother's, your great-grandmother's, your great-great-grandmother's. It's an unbroken chain for some 10,000 generations. The mitochondrial DNA is the same. So mapping mitochondrial DNA mutations, which do occur, but they're quite rare, they occur every few thousand years, was one of the first genetic tools that we used in what is known as the Human Genographic Project. It was this attempt to use genetic evidence to map out how humans colonized the planet, which we have a very good understanding of, and at least initially in part because of mitochondrial DNA. The last line of evidence, which I've already touched on, both mitochondria and chloroplasts have their own ribosomes. Remember ribosomes, that's the cellular machinery that manufactures proteins. And the mitochondria and the chloroplasts, their ribosomes are very similar structurally to those found in free-living prokaryotes. So there's 70S ribosomes. In eukaryotes, the ribosome is an 80S. So take a moment and let the idea of endosymbiosis sink in. It implies that all of the eukaryotic organisms on the planet today, the protists, the plants, the fungi, all of the animals, essentially what these eukaryotic organisms are just made up of chimera cells. Each of our cells is really just a mix of bacterial cells that are working together in an ancient symbiotic relationship, just like in Greek mythology, where the chimera was this mishmash of lion and goat and dragon. Our cells are essentially just a mishmash of bacteria working together. Is that humbling or is that awesome? Note here that the first eukaryotic cells are not anywhere close to like giant sequoias or blue whales. The first eukaryotes are composed of one cell, they're unicellular. Multicellularity doesn't enter the stage of life for hundreds of millions of years, but that is where we're going next.